It's time for Recipe of the Day. Pork cube steak is an insanely tender piece of pork because it's been mechanically tenderized by a machine. Now, this might be weird to say, but basically, anytime that you have a piece of meat that's been tenderized by breaking up the tissues before you cook it and before you eat it means that you don't have to chew through it as much. And that's what gives you the sensation that it's more tender, right? Because your teeth don't have to do that work. Therefore, it's super tender, right? Okay, so pork cube steak has been on BOGO at my grocery store so much lately that I had to buy a bunch up and find out the best way to cook it. I tried a whole bunch of things, baking, pan frying, breading, all of the different techniques, but the thing that I found was best was just a simple dredge in flour. The flour seems to hold in or lock in the juices as it's cooking and also probably absorb some of the oil that it's cooking in. Either way, you get really tender and juicy pork cube steak when you cook it like this. So yeah, pork cube steak usually comes from the pork shoulder or pork loin. I will say the ones that I've been getting seem to be loin. They are that whiter kind of pork meat for sure. And like the beef cube steak, as I was saying, it's more about how it's been processed than about the cut. It's meat that's been mechanically tenderized by a machine that punctures the meat and breaks apart all those tough fibers. And that's what gives you that cube pattern on the meat, which is why it's called cube steak. So once you've got your cube steak there, you can season it all over with salt, garlic powder, black pepper, and dried oregano, or you could use other seasonings. For 4 pork cube steaks, you're going to want 1 teaspoon of salt and then half a teaspoon of garlic powder, half a teaspoon black pepper, and half a teaspoon of dried oregano. Sprinkle that all over the cube steaks, or you could mix that directly with the flour. It's a half cup of flour. It really doesn't matter which way you do this. So you either season the steaks all over with the seasonings and then dredge them in the flour, or mix the seasonings with the flour and then dredge them in the seasoned flour. I've tried both. It didn't make a difference. Shake off any excess flour and then set those aside. You're going to get out a large skillet. I really like a cast iron skillet for here. If I'm doing all 4 of these at once, they are covering a large part of the pan, maybe slightly crowded. And so by having the cast iron skillet, it's thick, so it holds the heat a lot more than even a stainless steel skillet would. And so you don't end up with that steaming crowding effect that you can end up with. But you know what? You can always do these in batches, 2 at a time, or in 2 different pans beside each other. If you're going to do them in batches, 2 at a time, I would preheat your oven to 200 degrees Fahrenheit, and then you can keep the first 2 warm while you're cooking the other 2. So you've got your large skillet and you're going to add 3 tablespoons of cooking oil to that, and you're setting it over medium heat until it's shimmering. What kind of oil you use is really up to you. I like something with a slightly higher smoke point for this because we are cooking over medium high the whole time. So I would use a vegetable oil, canola oil, or grapeseed oil. Those are my go-tos. But whatever oil you like to cook with is probably going to be fine, because as we are bringing that up to that medium high heat, then we're adding all those pork cube steaks into there, and that's going to drop that temperature down a little bit. So you're not going to end up with a lot of smoking problem. And then you're really just cooking the cube steaks until they're well browned on each side. It's going to take about 3 to 4 minutes because they're so thin. By the time they get nice and brown on the outside, they are fully cooked through. It's a good idea to cut into one and make sure it's not pink inside, but it's going to be past the 145 degrees Fahrenheit that is required, say, for pork for sure, because they are so thin. And that is pretty much it. You just serve them after that. You can transfer them to that preheated warm oven if you'd like and make a quick pan gravy in the skillet. And I will link to a delicious onion gravy recipe. That one is perfect for this kind of thing. So you can do that and then serve it with mashed potatoes. That's going to be delicious. I will put the link to this recipe in the show notes for this podcast episode, or you could head to cookthestory.com/ROTD and get it there. Everything there is arranged by date, so it's helpful to know that today is September 12th of 2024. You should also make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast. There is a new episode every single day, and there are over 1,000 episodes for you to listen to already. You can find them all if you go to cookthestory.com/ROTD. That is one way to do it. Or whatever podcast app you like to listen to podcasts on, Go to that app on your phone and search for Recipe of the Day. You will find me. I am everywhere. I'm Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great day. Let's get cooking.